members of the
right.
American terrorists, I believe.
We'll call meeting to order at 2:31.
Noise down.
Make sure it records. All right, roll call, please.
Carrie Thompson.
Here.
Hal Christensen.
Here.
Marcia Cox.
Here.
Pat Rooney.
Here.
Sam Scarmato.
Here.
If we would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, can I have a motion to review and accept the agenda for this session?
I make a motion, we review and accept the agenda.
Second.
Vote.
Hal Christensen.
Yes.
Marcia Cox.
Yes.
Pat Rooney.
Yes.
Sam Scarmato.
Yes.
Carrie Thompson.
Yes. All right. At this time, then I will turn this over to Mr. Murray to discuss, review, and discuss the EBT consultant proposals.
That means you're on, Mike.
Madam Chair, members of the EBT Trustees Board. Over the last several weeks, all of you have been involved in the evaluation of the request for proposal that went out to not only those within the community but throughout the state. As you can see in front of you, as you were part of that evaluation process, we had 5 firms who were submitted their responses and proposals to the EBT. Over the last few weeks, all of you, like I mentioned, were involved in evaluating each of these firms. I took in the information and in this white binder that has the Lake Havasu Unified School District title on it, request for proposals. My office put these together. Mary was instrumental in doing that this morning. The 2 of us were putting the finishing touches, so then that way you could easily thumb through and refer to each of these firms by letter. The reason why we chose to assign a letter to the firms rather than a number as originally proposed is because later in this process we're going to rank the firms. We didn't want to get confused with firm number 3 being ranked number 5 or number 2 or number 1. We were going to have numbers mixing, and we wanted to try to eliminate some of that confusion. So that way we'll refer to each firm by letter, and then later in the process we'll rank that lettered firm to their actual standing and ranking as 1 through 5. In this binder, as I mentioned, you will see under tab A the firm that has been identified as tab A, and within that tab you'll see all of the evaluations submitted by each of you as EBT members, so you can see how each of you individually evaluated each firm. After tab E, there's a summary tab, evaluation summaries, where I compiled all of the evaluators. I left your name off of it, even though you can easily at some time refer to or understand who evaluator 1, evaluator 2, evaluator 3, and so on was. But I did put in this scoring guide, this table, if you will, that identifies each firm and how the evaluator came to that points total for each firm. At the bottom you see the total points for each of the firms based on the sum total of all the tabs. And if you turn to the last page after evaluator 1 through 5, at the bottom of evaluator 5 there's an evaluator's total table. I put each of the firms A through E, and then total gave a sum total of all of your scores together for each firm and each tab, so you can see which firm actually scored the highest for tab 1. And then so on for tab 2, tab 3, tab 4, and tab 5. And then at the very bottom there was a total points, so then you can see clearly who was the overall highest scoring firm, and then we can rank them from 1 to 5 at that point. So I thought that maybe having a breakout of all the tabs, that way you can see if there were a couple of firms that were pretty like, and they went back and forth between having the most points in one tab, and then maybe came in number 2 in the second tab, and you have 2 firms that were kind of going volleying back and forth in scoring down this RFP. We could look and see and identify those trends. So that's the purpose of that final table at the bottom of the last page. The green sections that you see there, that's just the highest point total. And then that you could look at the firm that has the most points, basically, the total, and then you can identify, or will identify, that firm that stands out the most. And then should you wish to interview in the process a little bit down the road, then we can interview by ranking. And that'll give you kind of a more clear picture as to where we go from here. So with that, the purpose of this work session is for you 5 now to come together as a quorum and be able to have a discussion. Being able to do that with complying with the open meeting laws, this allows us to have the opportunity to have all 5 of you sit in the same room and now put all of your individual scores together and have a discussion as to ultimately who or if you want to interview firms here in the near future to continue this process. So I will hand it back over to you, Madam Chair, and allow you to then go ahead and facilitate any discussions that you have amongst your group as you were the 5 evaluators in this process.
Do we want to kind of go through each and highlight some concerns or strengths that we saw,
I think that's a good idea.
so that we can kind of get a general picture of what?
Just A through E.
Start with A. So looking at proposal A, for me, what I saw as a plus is that they did have a well-trained staff, an attorney on staff, provided quarterly recommendations, or they stated they would provide quarterly and oversee wellness operations. And each staff member had 7 to 10 years experience that would be dealing with our group. What I saw as the biggest drawback here was the large cost. They were projecting $80,000 annually, but with a list of additional fees. So I thought each thing they were kind of charging above and beyond for any of the detailed services after. Does anybody want to kind of add their comments in there with A?
I'll add mine. I looked at this one, I think they did a good job of presenting everything according to the tabs and the requirements for the RFP. The range of services looked very broad and very deep. Plan management, actuarial. 3 of the 5 references that they submitted were school districts, which I appreciated that. They did do some market research on our plan, which I thought was nice. I think this was the only one that I saw that did that. And that actually made some comments. And we got there were 2 amendments that were posted on the website about questions that were asked by the offerers, and it kind of sounded like one of them might have been from this one, only because they were asking about who was doing legal and who was doing actuarial, and they had made a comment on not getting as much information as they liked from our wellness center. The access to legal and actuarial, I really like that because we're paying, well, so far, $30,000 last year for legal. And I don't know what our actuarial, because I think that's included in our Gills bar, but it would be interesting to see what kind of a savings that would be. The fact that they have an attorney, a CPA, and a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and a certified diabetes educator, and a PhD in pharmacy, and a person with near-site clinical experience, and they've actually implemented over 100 clinics, I thought was pretty strong information. And the fact that they have the dietitian and the diabetes educator on staff, I just, for wellness purposes, I think that's very strong. On the cost, considering we're paying $88,383 right now, I was not so surprised. I think most of them except for one was about in that same range.
They look to be in the same
Yeah.
relative area.
Yeah. And then on the services offered, they seem to have a lot of experience in developing trust documents, board documents, things like that, which is, again, we've had to spend, money on that, and it'd be nice if we had, someone representing us that did that. And just the fact that, their longevity, and I think they've been around since about 2001. They were actually, that's right, 1998. They were incorporated in Arizona. So they did make a mention in one of their last sections that they expected difficulties, none expected, but wants to review all the data and current contracts, but that they were concerned with the lack of reporting from the Wellness Center, and we'd already addressed that. So I just thought it was interesting that they would pick up on that by looking at our information.
And just to add on, in your binder today, we have the recommendations or the evaluations that have come in. The reference checks, are there. So those are from, 2 school districts in 1 city. So it gives you some expertise that they have with those and seem to score very well.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I just ask a quick clarifying? Can you list the names? I was trying to write all the things down. Registered dietitian. I have attorney, actuarial, registered dietitian.
Yeah, attorney, CPA, actuary, a registered dietitian, and that same person is a diabetes educator.
Right.
Another staff member has a PhD in pharmacy, and another one has extensive experience in on-site, near-site clinical consulting.
Okay.
So that would be someone that would have be well-versed in our clinic.
Thank you.
We did talk about actuarial services. That is an additional fee with them. That was listed in there for the regular annual or the GASB. So those prices were listed
Right.
in addition.
Well, and I think their recommendation was the enhanced service. That would be probably where I would go, only because of the enhancements and everything that's included under that enhanced service fee. Even if you're looking at $80,000 and $88,000, I mean, again, we're at $88,000 now, and our the fees that we're paying right now are based on premiums, and if the premiums go up, that amount goes up. So I think that would be a fair comparison. And this one actually has the clinical consulting, so that would be like the near-site, on-site consulting for our clinic at $17,000. And that's about what I expected to see for a consultant to charge to be that consultant for a clinic.
Yes.
Concerning, and they've got a very good presentation here as far as I'm concerned. My concern is, though, when it gets into the actuarial services and the legal services, Are they included in the flat fee, or is that an additional cost? Because otherwise we'd right back where we were. I couldn't certify in there that that was included, their unlimited legal fees, legal services and actuarial services, because both of those can run on an hourly basis a whole lot of money. And I was curious if that was in the flat fee or not.
Yeah, I would definitely want to dig into that in our interviews if we choose to interview, to specify with services exactly where.
No. It's a good point. I think based on the way that it was presented, the staff that included the CPA and the attorney were included in the services that would be provided for this cost. So, but it would be a good question to ask, straightforward.
I mean, it'd be a screaming deal one way or another, but if it's all included, if it isn't included, we could real easily run over $100,000.
Right.
The legal fees and actuarial fees are both very, their cost per hour are both very similar. And it's not $29 an hour, so.
No, I think we're at $350 an hour.
Right, it's about what it is generally, $300, $350 an hour.
Unless you go to court and then it's like $600 an hour. But you're right. I think that would be a question that if we had a chance to talk to them face to face, it would be a straightforward question.
Okay, any additional comments for Group A? All right, let's move to B, please. Would anyone like to start with comments here?
Well, the only comment I had after reading their presentation here was it seems like these guys are gigantic. I mean, would we just be a tiny little insignificant?
I just thought, are they too big?
Hmm?
I thought the same thing. Are they too big?
I did note in looking at that they did have a local office in Phoenix that I liked because travel-wise and
Sure.
availability for them, while still being a big company we'd have access to.
Well, one of the things I liked about them was that this was the only organization that I remember seeing that they represent 22 school districts in Arizona, public schools. And of the 22, 17 of them have 800 or fewer. And half of the, so like 7 or 8 of them have, 50 or less. So and those have been since 1987 to 2017 that they've had relationships with them. And I guess my feeling, I feel like they are a big firm and they have a very broad, sense of expertise. But if they've been successful in retaining districts since 1987 with those small sizes, they must be doing something right. And they also have an attorney and CPA and all of, a lot of the other things that I feel would be really, really strong in this. And their fee, if I remember right, also includes their full online employee services. And it's the only one that I saw that had the app. Yeah, they have an app for the employees, and they have live and recorded webinars on a monthly basis for the employees and the district and the administration. And they, I guess the big thing for me was that many school districts and that 17 of them were less than 800. I thought that was, and they're the only ones, and I think you mentioned it on yours too, Carrie, is they're putting up 10% of their fee as a how did we do survey. And so we are allowed to evaluate them on a yearly basis, and they're putting up 10% of their fee as a,
At risk.
at risk. And
Well, two points I have on that. Kind of gets down to the bottom line, EBTs and EBTs and EBT. It's benefits that you're doing. It doesn't have to be a school board. It could be a public works, whatever. It's a city per se. I don't think it's germane that it has to. And don't take it as a critique.
Oh, no.
I just don't know if it's even relevant that they're mainly school board. The other question is I don't see in any of these five presentations if they are going to sync with the new system that we're putting in here.
The visions, you mean?
Yeah, the software really isn't going to be an issue. The visions or Tyler Technologies, if we go that route here, which is a topic of conversation, I don't want to get ahead of the story.
Right, we haven't voted yet, but we are going, that was one of the promises with the bond, that we would get a new.
We're in the process of evaluating
Right.
and receiving some information on a few different financial software systems. But I don't see that as being an issue because the front runner in Arizona is basically has just a huge percentage of school districts in Arizona who run the Tyler Technologies software.
Right.
And there doesn't seem to be any type of disconnect. So
Is that
I'm not
something we could
concerned
ask the 5 applicants here if their software will sync with the new software, different variations of the new software?
I think that would be a great question
Yeah.
to add to the interview list of questions.
I do too.
I think so too. And I mean, I think they had quoted, $30,000 for that system, and I'm not sure how that compares to others because I haven't done any research on that lately. But the fact that it was included in their fees, and it did talk to integrating with other systems, and one of the things that I like especially, and it's not necessarily because it's school districts, it's just part of their actuarial, is they do 3% of the total claims, they do an audit every day, looking for anomalies. And for me, that's sort of a, kind of making sure that they're going to stay ahead of things and see if there's any issues or problems. The reporting I thought was good. I think that they had some information in here that they actually score any vendors interested in coming in and working or representing the EBT. And I always think, anytime you can get a pre-score to a score, I think it's a good idea. So.
A couple additions on there is I really liked that they provided a timeline
Yes.
in the type of services they wanted to provide and put deadlines as to when they want to reach that and exactly what that would entail. It gave me a much better picture of what they were really working with as far as consulting with our group. And I definitely highlighted some key areas where they looked at really developing a strategy for us on how we can best provide benefits to our staff. And I like that they have really done the research to provide us with key issues. So before it's an issue with ours, they've already identified that occurs with many EBT boards. And they listed some specifics like specialty drugs, which I know we have addressed. But they're already on that also. They're not waiting for a problem to occur within our financials before addressing that. So I saw that was listed in here. I thought the actual staff working with us had excellent experience, education, and licensing. And I liked that they were pretty local, that whole team was located in Phoenix and could work with us. I think those were the only additions to Marcia's comments.
Theirs was a 3-year rate guarantee too, where the others were just, there was one that didn't have one, but all the others had a 2-year. This one's a 3-year.
And I was just, this seems to be the Cadillac plan or whatever high-end you want to call it of everybody. And they said they're guaranteed for 3 years, 5% increases in year 4, 5% increases in year 4 and 5. The way I read that is in year 4 goes up 5%, and then year 5 goes up another 5%. Well, that's 10% in 2 years, which is pretty, to me, that's pretty significant. And then again, we talked on the other candidate with additional fees. They've got page 35. They have a number of additional fees that they would put in. So just trying to get to an apples and apples on the applicants, because, you know, I'm with Sam as far as cost goes. You know, if you think it's going to be $80,000, then you find out the first year it's $100,000 because of plus, 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 plus. So, and I think that's something when we narrow it down, or if we narrow it down to a couple candidates, those would be questions to ask them to try to pin them down on some of that stuff.
I was looking at, like, those additional costs listed out are mainly additional benefits in monitoring. So I didn't look at those as being like fixed cost fees, like using, you know, lawyers or those kind of things. I saw that as if we were planning to increase our benefit package.
Right. And some of those additional benefits in Section B are actually included in this list of the
different plans. Yeah.
Right, I have
three different
94.8,
plans.
the premium plan. I was looking at the premium plan 94.8, and if you take out the cost for the benefit plan, they're saying it's a $30,000 value, but let's just, I mean, even if it was a $10,000 value, it would be at 84.8. But those are, for the most part, included in here under the additional benefits. And then under the lab part, I would want some more information on that labs, because they're talking about a percentage of the verified savings, and I don't know that we've ever had anybody discuss, you know, hemophilia labs or something, and some kind of a savings with those. So it would be interesting. I think it would warrant more questions face to face, I think, with them.
I also like that they would do on-site quarterly meetings, because I didn't see in every presentation that they were willing to be on-site, and we do hold quarterly meetings, and this was listed as being included.
Is your mic on? Can you just tap it and see? Yeah. Can you press the button right on top?
Will that affect this? No.
There you go. Perfect. You have a soft voice.
Not when she's coaching.
Wow.
On occasion.
So all in all, I think this particular one, B, just because of their experience, and the site, it's a huge organization, but I think that might be why they keep up on some of the things that, you know, we're talking about, sort of, you know, being proactive in those things, and having a very broad scope of specialists in there, and people with different expertise, anywhere from the brokerage experience to the actuarial experience and wellness experience. And especially with the wellness programs, there are so many things that we can do and offer. And if you, I took the time to go online with this company, and there was also information in here too, but just the different types of things that are part of their standard plans and benefits, that live webinars, you know, and the recorded ones, and having wellness campaigns, if you will, but having a large variety of those types of campaigns to choose from, I think it's always going to be a plus.
I guess it was also good to state that they did state within the proposal that they will not accept any incentives, bonuses, or any other compensation from who we contract with within the proposal.
And I think didn't you mention the transition period? They mentioned that.
Yes,
They
the
wrote- and
timeline.
a
was
6-phase
excellent.
partnership blueprint. I thought that was, I think they're the only ones that did that. So, thinking ahead, that's good. And they also have I think it's an add-on, which it would be with any plan, but they did highlight or give some information on their virtual provider services through Teladoc.
Yes.
It's just one of the vendors that offers that, but the fact that they're already working with them is strong for me, because it really is going to be something that I think we're going to see, because we're seeing that shortage of providers in the country hit areas like ours especially hard.
When I move to company C, please. there not a third reference on this end, Mary?
Just two. And in the references, you didn't see anything, there weren't any like, oh my goodness, this, I couldn't read this from the referral or the reference or anything. They're all pretty straightforward, any of the answers that you got back.
Comments? Company C?
Well, one thing I did was all 5 of the applicants, I just went to Google and Googled their name and their titles, and there's really nothing much at all on this, on C. And
Yeah.
There's very, very little at all, which kind of leads me to believe, I have limited experience here, being as it's like my second meeting with the current provider. But everybody else, there's extensive page after page after page, and when you Google this one, you just get a couple a couple little offhand comments. Generally, if you type in a company or a firm's name, you'll get 7 or 8 down or 10 down. You get somebody complaining about what they do and don't do. And this one's just kind of like non-existent on the internet, which kind of made me think, kind of wonder.
Didn't seem, the package itself didn't seem as comprehensive as the other 4.
And I could never support anybody that worked on a percentage of the commission.
Just the commission, yeah.
I mean, a percentage of the.
Like when you go to Google, I go to the Arizona Corporation Commission because I want to see how long they've been here. And this one is June of 2009. So for me, that was kind of the same thing. You're not going to see a lot of information on it, but.
My problem was there were only 2 evaluations that were turned in. That bothered me because I think if you're doing something, even though I believe on all of them it was perfect scores, but at the same time, when I asked Mary to provide me with something, and that was the fees. And I just am one of those guys that I like to see everything up front. And so what we did is we got the fees at the end. I don't think it appeared on the application. There was a lot of effort compared to the others. I like if you're really applying for a job or you're applying for something, I think it would be your best foot forward. And that bothered me right from the get-go. And but if all of a sudden at the end we can get these fees, I like to know that right up front, always, so that there aren't any surprises, Even on these others, I like to, whoever we have come in, I want that really spelled out, pretty close to what they're going to charge.
Well, and that's going to be difficult if it's a straight percentage.
Yeah.
And that's always been, you guys know I've barked about that for a long time. It's almost impossible to know that unless you ask them for their personal tax return or their corporate return. You're just not ever going to know.
But if it is a percentage, at least at the end of the year, you should get that.
Well, I think on this one, I'm trying to find the section on the cost.
1.2%.
Yeah, the 1.2%, but it was negotiable, and it was of an estimated of the total annual contributions, and there's no guarantee and there's no net 30, which are both requirements of our RFP. And which year are you talking about? What contributions? Because you can go back to the prior year and you can see a closed set of books, so to speak, and know exactly what the contributions were. Or in most cases, my experience, and when I was an agent and a broker that charged a commission, and this was pre-2010 when fees were more and flat fees were more acceptable because of the Affordable Care Act, but when we would charge a fee, it was based on whatever was paid that month, and we got a percentage of it. So it was the renewal premium was tied to the renewal or the commission. So it's going to be difficult to see. You would never know exactly what it was until unless you were doing it for a prior year. and guaranteeing that you're just using an established annual contribution for the year before.
Only thing I did want to mention on staffing is in comparison to the other companies that provided proposals, while the experience level was good, it didn't seem the education was there or the services or the additional staffing.
Right.
No attorney, no actuarial services,
All
and
brokers.
additional members on staff did not have the education levels as some of the other companies.
Yeah. I think 3 out of the 4 had a producer's license, and 1 had a associate's degree in customer administration. And when I was looking at the resumes for these, and I don't know, because the electronic version didn't have the resumes in it, but the hard copy did. And none of the resumes mentioned the firm that's putting in the bid. So, but I think to your point, the fact that the staff, you know,
I just found the level of education much better in the other teams
yeah.
and who we'd be working with.
And I'm kind of a, you know, read the rule first or read the test first and then take the test kind of thing. I mean, I remember getting my dollar when I got to, read the whole thing, and it said if you didn't, if you turn this in without anything, you get your dollar because you read it first. And I guess one of my concerns was some grammatical things, which is just me, but the tabs didn't flow. The tabs weren't the same. Everybody else was consistent in this particular one. They weren't. And the last evaluation and ability to provide services, I wasn't sure that was clearly represented in the statement that was made by this particular vendor.
Right. Can we move to D, please, proposal D? Would anyone like to start with comments on evaluations here? I noticed when we scored, this seemed to be the company that had the most variation between us.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be that some have more background knowledge than just with the proposal.
I know, Sam had mentioned that an EBT can cover broad, but this applicant, to me, I think it was Cochise College and another community college, but I didn't. There's a couple of charter schools, but I didn't see that they worked with school districts, and that would be a general question I'd have is if someone like candidate B, who I think someone said they work with 17 school districts, and understand that on the one hand there's a lot of similarities, but on the other hand I think if you're familiar with working with the school district, it might give you a little bit better experience than if this seems to be more municipalities.
Mm-hmm. I think the work experience in the self-funding arena was very strong. This one, again, not as broad of a staffing. I think they do have a CPA or actuarial on staff, but no attorney. And I don't think, the fact that we have 2 out of 5 that have an on-staff attorney and on-staff CPA actuarial, I think bodes well for them. You don't see it a lot, But if it's something that comes with the deal, it's really nice to have that. Because like you said, $200 or $300 an hour, it's nice to ask those questions. So that would be something that would be nice to have. But this one, it does have a extensive experience and has actually been incorporated since 1994, which is strong. Their fee was a combination of a flat fee, and I think this is the one that gave, it was a 2-year guarantee, and I think they took it out to like 6 or 8 years. Yeah, like 6 years. But then they also would receive a commission for any voluntary plans. So it's sort of a combination of the two. But that would be easily identifiable.
There are a couple of points on here I wanted to make. One was that immediately our account was going to be given to, I'm a little lower on the totem pole, I guess. In there, that would be moved directly to a different account manager. And I did not see any experience with an on-site wellness clinic. And so we would kind of be their education in that area. And I saw under offered services, it made it sound like they wanted to work with us annually. It seemed to be an end-to-end review and financials on a yearly basis. I know we have worked mainly quarterly and kind of strategically that way, so I didn't know if that was anything we wanted to address if we decide to interview, if we want to make them more clearly specify what their services would entail.
I thought it said that they were available for any meetings that we had, and
Said it review our last 3 years and provide end-to-end review.
oh, for going, I guess I took that as if this firm was awarded the bid, that they would do a review of the last 3 years and for going forward.
Yeah,
But not,
that's what I see.
which is a good thing to do.
I thought costs were in line, but a little high considering they didn't offer the same services as maybe the larger corporations without any attorney or actuarial included. And they did charge additional fees for their benefit software, so then that would raise the cost higher than others that have made the proposal if we decided to go that route. Mr. Murray, is that something you can expand on at all? Would we need to use the online benefit services for enrollment, or would that be something we can handle within district?
Well, I think that's something that we bring up during the interview process to see exactly what it is that they are going to offer us.
Okay.
And I think any services when it comes to utilizing their systems would be great, because it's just things that we don't really currently have available at this time. Now, should we make a transition and we need to see what other software systems that the district may procure will offer as part of add-ons, and then we can compare those add-ons with what the consultant would offer as add-on services.
Well, and this one was presented as an add-on as well, because I think
Yes.
our question was just, you'll include information on offered electronic benefits. But in this, I think they presented the Hodges Mace. The only concern I had was let's see, on their eligibility and tracking and doing the compliance for the 1095C reporting, they charge a minimum of $2,000 a month or $1.10 per employee per month, and we don't have enough people to come up to $2,000. So I guess that'd have to be something we have to talk about. But Hodges Mace and I think the Benefits Connect was the other one. There's 3 of them that I compared them side by side, and I'm not sure if I don't think it was Hodges Mace, but they do have the online enrollment. One of them, I think it was the Benefits Connect, actually has live interaction and tutorials. That's always been one of mine. The comment I've heard many times is, you know, when you get new teachers coming in, they spend 2 or 3 hours just on paperwork, on forms and this and that, and you kind of go numb. So it'd be nice to have something like that available that a new employee could do in the comfort of their own home, you know, and fill out and go through a little tutorial, you know, like a 5 or 10 minute tutorial kind of thing. So I'd be interested to find out more about what they would include and how it would incorporate with any kind of a program that, you know, we would be adding on.
I think one of the things I would feel more comfortable with if we choose to interview is when we talk about who would be in control of the contract. I think maybe we would ask the
Right.
senior person to be in charge. I feel like we would be one of their larger clients,
I agree.
and I would prefer that.
Yep. I agree with that.
Additional comments? All right, then can we move to E, please? Comments on this proposal?
I was a little confused with this one's cost because it was significantly different, less than half per year kind of thing. And I think it was, part of that was, I'm really going to have some more information about that.
I wrote the exact same thing. I would like to see a timeline of what they plan to implement, a better list of services to what they actually are going to provide within that fee.
And this one also didn't have any public schools in their references that were sent in.
Yeah, I just saw Maricopa Community College
Yeah,
as the
primarily
closest.
like charter
Yeah.
schools.
Charter
Yes.
college.
Yeah.
Yeah. They also had access to additional staff. I think they had a list of 4 or 5 and then a subset of additional staff that could be available that included an attorney and for compliance, actuary, and they actually have a physician as the chief medical officer on staff, which I hadn't seen in the other ones.
Why did I write no attorney? Did I?
The attorney was in the additional staff. Yeah, on the ones that the court have available to discuss or talk to.
So in compliance,
Let me get her resume. It's on page 11 at the top. The attorney JD compliance consultant at the top. And this one also listed a group, identified a group of 5 subsidiaries that it looked like they work with the organization to create, their programs. But again, I think like you, I'd like to have that more spelled out because all of these subsidiaries provide different services, and it's not real clear. It wasn't real clear to me anyway that we had access to all of those and they were all going to help to review our current plans. So that was a little bit of.
I had made a comment that the application looked like a boilerplate application that just kind of plugged stuff together. So, and again, the cost was a huge difference from the other,
That was a head scratcher,
the other
yeah.
4. Yeah, but again, it just, I don't know, there's just something about looking through the whole package that didn't seem that as much thought and detail went into it as much as some of the other applicants.
I think my one, probably two-star comment that I made for myself was on offered services about the electronic benefits, and quoting from their RFP, bottom line is, whatever technology you want to use is perfectly fine with us, and we will support you from a technology standpoint, but this would require a separate project fee. So for me, it was like, well, I'll be happy with whatever I get to, but I'm going to do a lot more. I'd like to get a recommendation from a consultant on that, and if it has a separate project fee, that means it's going to be above and beyond the consultant fee that they're charging. So.
Yeah, I agree.
It just seems like in the conversations we've had, what I've heard, that we could probably eliminate 2 of the applicants for consideration. It's right that we can do that now or what, but to me, it just seems like applicant C and applicant E, there are more questions or deficiencies in their application than the other 3. And I don't know if it's unmotionable or whatever we have to do, but whatever the other trustees feel, I would think that we could eliminate those 2 consideration, depending on what everybody else thought.
You said C and what was the second one?
C and E.
E, I agree.
And I think too, I mean, obviously, it's been a long time since this trust has looked at RFPs for consultants, and I think it merits having face-to-face meetings. I like the fact, I'd much rather have 3 than 5, because I'd like to get it done in one day. And if we put a limit on it, like an hour, up to an hour kind of a thing, then you're looking at a 3-hour meeting where we can, have a presentation, and I would assume at that point we would go into executive session, make a vote, and then come out and, announce that. So that would be.
I don't know how the other trustees feel about that, but I would just think that, I'm with you, Marcia. I just think that 2 or 3 is a lot easier than 5.
Make it a motion, I'll second it.
I mean, is it something that we
Well,
make
this
a
is a work
motion, or
session.
is
This
it
is our
just a work
yeah,
session?
so
We can
that would
recommend
be
that.
what we can make a recommendation at our meeting next
Yeah.
week.
Okay.
I mean, when
Yeah.
it comes to that point.
Well, that's I would, unless someone feels, adamantly opposed to any of those 2 applicants, I don't see,
Do A, B, and
A, D, and B. A, B, D would be the 3. I think we should
those are the 3
concentrate
hours.
on.
And I think it would be, in the interest of the public too, that, we schedule a meeting and have these, businesses come and do a presentation, but that would be the only thing that the meeting would be about. So I know because there's a lot on this September, I wouldn't recommend we do it at all like that, because that would be too soon, but maybe there's a week, the 1st or 2nd week of October, where we could have an EBT meeting, have them come, that would give them enough time to, bring their people out and do their presentation, but like you said, let's limit it to an hour, because I could talk for 4 days, but.
No, Marcia, would you think that we would give them questions ahead of time, or do you think we'd have them come in cold and have the questions we want, just like we were talking about here?
I would like to see us give some areas of focus that we kind of saw come up
Yeah.
in here. Now, I think we can ask them pretty specific questions when they're here, but I would like them to prepare for exactly what
Right.
they would offer us, so it's like their best offer.
I have questions in each one of the proposals that I've written in the margins that I would probably ask if I was face-to-face with them. And they, like you said, you want them to come and do their best, and they should be prepared to answer any of those questions.
But we're taking that train of thought, I don't think we should give them questions. I think kind of let them come in cold, and
Right.
you're going to see the real vein of the responses when if they do come in cold, rather than giving a script to prepare for.
Well, I would like to give them areas that we want addressed and specific topics. Now, our questions, we should question when they're here for proposal.
Well, I would expect that they would probably follow the same guideline as they did for the proposal. I mean, those are the parts, the 5 sections that we wanted them to, to talk about. That would be what I would want them to include in their presentation.
I would think telling them ahead of time that, cost is one of our huge, it's not our primary, it may not be primary, but it's right up there. It's equal to a couple others. So maybe ask them, say, we'd like you to break your costs down a little bit more specifically for us as it relates to actuarial and attorneys and the software, things like that. And I don't see there's a problem telling them that ahead of time.
Yeah.
Just say we just want you to break it down so we can understand it. It's all black and white. It's not fuzzy math.
I think that's a good suggestion. And then what I'm concerned about is the transition from, since we're going to go to looking at new people, will this be effortless? What problems do they anticipate? Can they make the transition from how we're being serviced now to what they're offering?
Sure.
To me, that's important.
Yeah,
Well, and I
that's
think
critical.
and that was, I think, the whole idea of doing a January effective date, because our next year renews in July, which means that you'd be putting that out for bid like February, March. But if we come to a decision on whoever the vendor's going to be in October, then we have a couple months to get to know each other, and they can, contact the district. And
yeah, that'd be another question.
For me, that's
and like Pat says,
good lead-in.
from a transition standpoint, are you going to have full-time people up here for a period of time, or is it going to be off-site and then come out?
Yeah. Well, and one actually put their timeline together and said
Yeah.
when they would be coming and what they would be doing, which I like that. So
I know being involved in a number of different transitions, and I'm sure other people have, the salesmen are going to promise you the moon, and a lot of it is how they handle the bumps. And unfortunately, there's a lot of things you can't anticipate until they happen, but I would hope that they would have a team on site when we're doing this, because from our standpoint, we're going to be sitting back watching them, but from the staff's point, Mary, where do you retire again?
January 12th. But who's counting?
We're going to need a work session for Mary.
Yeah, but that's something that I'd like them to respond to also. Is if you're the successful applicant, how do you envision doing this transition?
And that might be a question if there are some of the references that maybe are a little sooner than others. A question for one of them is, how was your transition? When you decided to work.
Oh,
with
sure.
this
That's a great question.
broker. And I think we could ask them that. You might.
Repeat that one more time.
If we chose a consultant that we were concerned about the transition from one consultant to another, if we could ask the districts or whoever the references were, how was their transition with whoever that business was?
If they had one. I mean, some
If
of
they
these
had
may
one.
have just been, this is the only company they've ever dealt with, but
Right.
certainly a fair question. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'd say that's fine. It's on the evaluation, the firm evaluation that they ranked, they were able to score if
Right.
there was
They actually,
concerns with transitions.
right, there was a question on that. And they also agreed to, and I'm not necessarily volunteering for this, but I know that they agreed to an on-site visit of their office and their staff, just to meet them. I would expect that if we invite 3 businesses here, that they're going to bring their best and brightest. And they're giving us the names of the people who would be representing us, so, let's see.
In that performance evaluation summary, it referred to as the startup process.
Right. Yes, number 2, startup process. And I think that was the question I'd asked you earlier was, a few of the people that did the references didn't enter a number there, and I think it was just maybe they weren't present when the business, when the new vendor or when the consultant was starting. But that is a question that they answered, so I'd like to find that answer too. So do you think that going with A, B, and D, and making a decision that we'll recommend that we contact them and schedule a meeting in October?
Well, is anybody thinking of the other three candidates should be eliminated? Or do you want to, the three of them, I like to see the three of them. I'm just saying if there's a strong case for eliminating anybody else, speak now, because if it's two, it's easier than 50% less. I know that candidate D, to comment, and one of the comments I made too, is they don't work with a lot of schools. They work with other municipalities. So I'm just asking the other trustees if you think we should keep it at 3 or should we eliminate any of the other ones?
Well, my scoring on those three were the closest of all, all of them, and I can't remember what the last one was, but let's see what we did here. But even in our totals, A, B, and D were the three that we all identified, and they're all the closest. But you're right, you're talking about 3 hours versus 2.
Well, does any of, I think candidate B was almost far above the 4 out of the 5 trustees ranked them the highest.
Yeah.
And like I say, A and D are both in the mix too.
Well, and the downside, like you said, was that B doesn't have any experience with an on-site clinic. That would be the one drawback. But they were still...
I just had serious questions about the services they were willing to provide us, which is why D scored lower for me. But I could see they were a different type of company, and I think when they present face-to-face, it would be good to compare those differences and see how that fits to our school district, because the other two then are those large corporation types.
Right.
And I think you could get a little bit different feel in person. And my hope would be that they could present a better picture than what I saw.
Sure, I just wanted to put it out there to see how everybody else felt.
Yeah.
That was the only reason, because I see A and B as kind of similar types, and D is a different type of proposal.
Sure.
I'd like to see all three.
So it would give us a good comparison, but I mean, between A and B, and by the scoring, I do think B was definitely a stronger candidate. On paper.
You're exactly on paper.
On
Yeah.
paper.
Well, I wouldn't object to 3, because it's, like you said, we haven't done this in 25 years.
No.
Or whenever it was, I
That's
don't
fine.
remember, but, and
Okay.
maybe, I don't know how you would pick who goes first, maybe they all draw a number or something, I don't know, but
Yeah.
if we had 3 that we invited and told them they had an hour, up to an hour, and,
Sure.
10 minutes Q&A or
Just
whatever.
do a random
Stay on the
selection.
schedule.
Sure.
Yeah, somebody pick a name out of, or pick a number out of a hat, kind of thing.
When we did do the presentations for the wellness clinic on that contract, that's exactly, we did 3. We narrowed it down to 3, interviewed 3, and kept them on a specific time frame and got them through. They all got the exact amount of time.
Yep.
It was all in an hour.
I'm a true believer in that, especially with brokers and insurance agents, my rule is take off your watch and when my buzzer rings, you're done.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
I think that's a
Me.
good plan.
Were you
Works for
looking
me.
at timeline, kind of what you thought would work best?
So October 9th is the week of fall break. So we either have to do it the week before that, the week of the 2nd, or the week of the 16th.
Yeah, October 9th. You say October 9th.
Well, I'm available
No,
on
you said that's-
October
that's fall
3rd.
break.
Otherwise, I'm out of town until the 11th. I'm back on the 11th.
I'm sorry, what were those dates, Mark?
I'm available on October 3rd, on Tuesday the 3rd. When did you say fall break is? The 9th?
The week of the 9th.
The week of the 9th, okay.
Yeah, I'm gone that week anyway, so that's fine.
So,
And October 17th is that's a school board meeting, right, Mike?
Correct.
I've got that written down.
does anybody object to the 3rd?
Do you mind if I pull my calendar up?
No, no.
Up here so I can look at dates?
Sam and I have a 12 o'clock commitment, other than that, I'm clean.
Gonna do what? Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, we're talking 3 hours plus
So-
executive session and then vote and
Well, you know, the 2:30, 3 o'clock time frame for me works
It's good for me.
It works well, that way or 7 o'clock in the morning works well for me too.
I don't think we can get it done to a 7 o'clock meeting in the
Right,
morning.
and that's-
Except for us.
Right, exactly,
But
so,
this would be a public meeting, this would be an EBT meeting, so the public would be invited.
yeah, so
So-
I would think something in the 2:30 to 3 o'clock range, and
Yeah.
I'm fine with that on the 3rd so far.
We have a meeting on the 28th, too.
Yeah,
That's our
that's
September
our
meeting.
normal September meeting.
Okay.
So that's only a week later, but
So, is it the 3rd?
Carrie's checking.
My calendar's being slow.
did you have a comment?
I just wanted to say, so if they go into executive session to discuss it after this meeting, you would come out of executive session and vote on it? You wouldn't
Yes.
vote on it in executive session?
No.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, yeah, and then you would cast the vote and otherwise,
I'm away on October 3rd. I'm in Phoenix.
okay.
You're in Phoenix?
How about the week of the 16th?
15th?
The week of the 16th, anybody who's looking at that week?
I'm available on all of those days.
I would think the earlier the better,
Yeah.
just because we're looking at January, so. Carrie, you're gone the 3rd, but how about
The 16th?
the 5th?
I'm gone.
You're gone the 5th.
The
Yeah.
5th.
She's on the rest of the week, right?
Oh, right, okay.
I'm gone from the 4th through the 11th.
Don't we have some board meetings on the 5th?
We do.
Yeah, 4 and 4:30?
Yes.
Okay.
What about Monday, the 16th? Is that,
I'm
Monday the
available on the
16th?
16th.
I'm at eye surgery.
on the 16th?
Yep.
What about the 29th? Anybody in town on the 29th?
Of October.
No.
Of
September,
September,
day after your EBT.
I'm in Phoenix.
Yeah, 16th, I've got something. Well, I'm gone from the 10th to the 16th.
Monday, the 2nd of October, is anybody on?
I'm okay that day.
I'm okay.
Which day?
Yeah.
Second.
Monday the 2nd.
October
Works for me.
Yeah.
I'm open.
No.
I'm open.
Yeah,
So Monday, the 2nd,
Yeah.
at what time, 3 o'clock?
whatever, 2:30, 3 o'clock, doesn't matter to me.
So,
Well, we would need to do 3 proposals, so that would probably be an hour, so 3, 4, 5, done by 6. Everybody's okay time-wise that way?
Mhm.
Do you want to give them 45 minutes, and that way we book an hour, and then you can
Yeah,
have 15
I
minutes
like
to let
that.
them go and do
Yeah,
that?
45
Yeah.
minutes and sure.
And then we have 15 minutes of in-between, so you
Yep.
can have a conversation if need be.
I'm thinking none of them are gonna leave though, because it's an
So
open
we decide on
meeting.
what time?
And if they're gonna
3
vote
o'clock
on it,
on
We
October
would be
2nd.
voting on it,
that's
yeah.
essentially awarding it.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that they're all gonna hang out and watch each other
I would think so.
play. I mean, I would, if I was a vendor coming from out of town, I'd wanna see what somebody else's presentation was like.
Yeah, I would expect they would all be,
Not that it matters, I'm just saying, you know, maybe for setting up presentation, but giving that.
well, if we started at 3, we would be over with the presentations and the Q&A by 6,
Right.
and do executive session, and, that'll take
Yeah.
X number of minutes,
I'll
and then
miss the first half of Monday Night Football, so that's okay.
you can record
I
it.
can see the second half. No, I don't
I know.
We
record
have
it.
to check and make sure that that is,
I don't record them either, because then I
I don't
find out
have
the
time to
score.
watch it live.
I know.
Where am I going to find the time
Aren't
to
they
watch it?
changing, when's the time change? They might be on later.
That's why I look at the newspaper and I read what happened.
Yeah.
That you're not gonna be able
Her
to.
explanation.
So we would have
Last week.
When are we gonna meet?
I don't think.
October
3 o'clock.
2nd.
I think you're just
October
gonna have to
2nd.
agendize
Now,
it.
what's the process? Does the trustees make a recommendation to the board, or what?
So we vote on it, and then we make our recommendation to the
Okay,
board.
that works.
And then the board ratifies it.
And the board-
It'll actually be a board, it'll be a
Yeah.
meeting.
That way
Actually,
they can have
We're
them.
hired.
No, the board doesn't ratify it.
No,
Why
you
The
is,
just-
only thing that the
Ours is an
school board
FYI.
ratifies, or the only thing the school board does is the trustees.
Right.
Everything else,
It's
It's
a
you
courtesy,
guys.
I think it's a courtesy
I
FYI.
think it's a courtesy FYI, but it's not, doesn't have to be ratified by the board.
No, on the 17th, or whenever the next board meeting will be, I'll just do that as an informational.
Right.
item, That's all.
Right.
Okay.
So we would make the decision, see the presentations, make the decision on October 2nd. And then you would make the announcement or comment at the next school board meeting on the 17th.
So the second is presentations and selection.
Right. And I like that we're going to separate it from our meeting on the 28th, because September 28th is going to be busy. And that would be a really long day. That sounds good.
Okay.
Works for me.
So Mike, will you, you'll notify those A, B, and D
Correct.
and give them the timelines and all that? And
Can I get that from you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just the date, the time, so it's official, and any questions that you want me to send them? I wrote down the cost of services and transition. Do you want to put that in question form, or do you want to just be general with that? Just be prepared to discuss costs relating to services, direct services involved, or additional services?
provide detail on your costs.
Okay.
Provide detail on what your cost of services
Not only the
entail.
cost, but these transition
Right.
issues
Yeah.
that are gonna come up.
Yeah, how
To
you would
me-
handle a
To me,
transition.
that's real important.
So
Right.
can you
Yeah,
bullet
agreed.
those two, how you want me to send it, and then I will send that information to vendors A, B, and D.
Now, who notifies C and E?
We'll do that as well.
Okay.
We'll let them know that, we'll thank them for their submittal and let them know that the process is continuing on. And just thank them for applying.
We used to call that a TBNT, thanks but no thanks.
Yeah.
And you do that now because we've already made a decision that we're bringing 3 forward for interview. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, C being our current provider, is there anything that C could do if he was really mad at us for, is there any kind of sabotage? And being the paranoid that I am, I'm just a little worried if he realizes he's not going to be there any longer. if
He has a
there's
fiduciary responsibility, and he signed a business associates agreement with us to, maintain.
Yeah, but this
integrity
is
and credibility.
Arizona, fiduciary responsibilities don't go very far.
Well, we can always, notification can happen after a meeting
Certainly.
next week. And right now, that's the last schedule that we have to have scheduled, so.
Well, I would think that the C and E would be notified prior to October 2nd.
Right.
because I mean, if they get wind that we're interviewing 3 candidates, I would think, to be fair to them, is just we would notify them sooner rather than later.
Well, our next EBT meeting is the 28th, so it's going to kind of,
Well, what we could do is I can word it in a way where we are now beginning the interview process.
second phase.
And not to let them know at this point, because I think it's also, on our behalf, we should be responsible enough to say that we're going down this road, but not let them know completely yet, because what if
What if one of those,
what if A, B, and D are non-responsive? Or they
Right.
say, hey, I didn't think I had a shot anyways, or we
That's
put
true.
it out and we're not interested.
Right.
It's just too far of a drive or whatever. Now we might be backed into the corner where we might want to talk to D at that point. I don't know. I'd rather not close the door completely yet until the interview
I
process
think I agree with that.
is
I think that's-
So wait till after, at least after the next EBT meeting.
wait till the second, I would say, until we know that they're there and then it's announced to the board. The second is pretty close.
But you would be contacting A, B, and D now and letting them know that that's the day we're going to have the
They've
interviews.
been
and
selected.
Make sure that they're available.
Correct.
Okay.
So any other area of focus besides a detailed cost of services and the transitional issues that we need, or we
Those are
want
the two
addressed?
biggest for me.
Anything with staffing?
Well, I know this goes to transition, but the question that the EBTs they work with, were they initially formed with that company, or did they take over from another company? Is that from a transition standpoint? I mean, does that make sense? Yeah.
And then you could just give a general, just to give them a heads up, or a reminder to just be familiar with all tabs. His
Yeah.
questions will.
I'd like to follow the guidelines of the 5 tabs, just because that's been the conformity.
His
Because everything is going to be,
questions will directly relate to the RFP.
Right.
The proposal or something. Right. That way they know to make sure they
right,
come prepared for all areas as well.
yeah. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but after this process, everything that we've done, including all of these proposals, becomes public record. And everybody has access after the award.
After October 2nd.
I think that was included in, yeah.
So, in line with what Sam was saying, so at the next EBT meeting, if the question arises from the current provider, the answer is just, we're still in process. That's the answer.
I just have to kind of point out the obvious that this whole meeting is being recorded.
So the meeting,
And if it's posted before the EBT meeting, I'm pretty sure our current provider is going to watch the video. And so all this conversation is going to be evident that,
If he hasn't figured it out by after that process is going on, he's probably not a very good provider.
well, I'm sure he is.
No.
That's my guess.
Well, and that's where I'm kind of going to is, and I understand what Mike's saying, but I mean, I would think the odds of 3 applicants, all 3 of them turning it down would be pretty minimal, and I'm just thinking not to let somebody spin in the wind, just say, we've done our initial process, and we have narrowed it to 3 applicants, and you're not one of them.
I would think as a courtesy to our current,
Yeah,
that somebody would call him
common courtesy.
But I would think, I would think that would be
sooner
before,
rather than later.
I would think that would be before September 28th.
I would think that would be today,
yeah,
to be honest, because it's going to get out. This is a public meeting.
right. I agree with that.
So I think it's respectful. That's just my opinion.
So call, yeah, I agree. Call C and E and let them know. And is that Mike's responsibility as the director?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But I'll let them know too that the process isn't completely over yet either,
Right.
because again, it's not, it's being completely upfront and,
Right.
and letting them know that we are in the interview process,
Right.
and, you know, anything could happen. So I don't want to slam the door on anyone completely.
Right.
But then again, in no way are we going to lead them on either. It's just that we're in this interview
I
process.
think that's the honest thing to do.
I do too. I would rather by our next EBT meeting that our current provider knows.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right, any other updates or announcements?
Can we make a motion that we double the trustees' salaries for the EBT board?
And the
From
school
0 to
board.
0?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the school board too.
Both.
Yeah, both of
Trustees
them.
and the school board.
Yeah, double it, triple it. Come on. Yeah, why not?
All right, then, do I have a motion?
I make a
Adjourn?
motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Do we keep these binders?
3:53.
Uh-huh.
Yes, please keep your material.
Including